At least 5 people have been killed in southeast France after an avalanche struck the Alps on Sunday. 1 person is still missing.
More bodies have been found in the rubble of a building that collapsed after a major explosion in the French port city of Marseille.
At least 5 people were killed and several others injured after an avalanche struck the French Alps on Sunday. The snowfall took place shortly before noon near the Armancet Glacier on Mont Blanc, outside of resorts dedicated to winter sports. Authorities say the death toll includes 2 mountain guides from Saint-Gervais. 1 person is still missing.
Three bodies have been pulled from the rubble of a building that collapsed in Marseille after a violent explosion in the early hours of Sunday morning. 5 other people remain unaccounted for, and the city's mayor says search operations are ongoing to find those who are still missing.
S'il reste des vivants sous ces décombres, il faut les préserver à tout prix. Et faire ça de manière, si je puis me permettre de m'exprimer ainsi, chirurgicale. Et donc c'est pierre par pierre que nous continuons ce travail, que nous le continuerons toute la journée. Il reste de l'espoir, et tant qu'il reste de l'espoir, nous ne nous arrêterons pas.
The 4-storey building located in Marseille's city centre was brought down by the explosion just before 1 a.m. The cause of the explosion is still to be determined, but investigators are looking at the possibility of a gas leak.
Taiwanese Mirage jet fighters take off from Hsinchu Air Base in response to China's continuing large-scale military drills. Dubbed Joint Sword, the 3-day operation, which included rehearsing an encirclement of Taiwan, should end Monday, according to the People's Liberation Army Eastern Theatre Command. China has been deploying dozens of fighter jets and warships around Taiwan in an angry show of force, following a meeting between the island's president and the US House Speaker. The move has sparked calls for restraint from Washington and a no change to the status quo, as it continues to monitor Beijing's actions closely. Following his recent visit to China, French President Emmanuel Macron has reiterated his call for Europe to maintain an independent foreign policy. In a newspaper article, he said Europe should not be caught up in a disordering of the world and crises that aren't ours. Monday's exercises will include live fire drills off the rocky coast of China's Fujian province, about 80 kilometres south of Taiwan's Matsu Islands, and 186 kilometres from Taipei. Taiwan has denounced the drills.
While Russia continues to focus on seizing Ukraine's industrial east, 2 other provinces, Kharkiv in the northeast and Zaporizhia in the southeast, came under missile fire on Sunday. Residential areas have been hit, including a cluster of houses where a child was among the casualties. In his nightly address, President Volodymyr Zelensky referred to the strike on Zaporizhia, saying that Russia puts itself in even greater isolation from the world and from humanity by hitting a house in Zaporizhia on the Orthodox Church's Palm Sunday. The vast majority of Ukrainians with a religious affiliation identify as Orthodox Christians, a faith that observes Easter on April the 16th this year. Some Catholics celebrated Easter on Sunday, while Orthodox churches marked Palm Sunday this weekend. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Air Force released for the first time footage of the National Advanced Surface-to-Air missile systems being operated. The video claimed that over 5 months of combat operations, Ukrainian NASAMs have destroyed over 100 enemy missiles and drones.
After days of clashes, tensions were high on Sunday in and around the Al-Aqsa Mosque and compound in Jerusalem. Hundreds of Jewish worshippers were escorted across the esplanade towards the city's Western Hall, the holiest place where they can pray as they marked the Passover holiday. During the night, hundreds of Palestinians worshipped at the Al-Aqsa Mosque during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Despite police pressure, attendees later refused to leave the religious compound. In the end, they were not evicted, as in previous days, to avoid further clashes. On Sunday, hundreds of people attended the funeral for two British Israeli sisters, aged 16 and 20, who were killed in a shooting on Friday in the occupied West Bank. The mother, who was also shot in the attack, remains in a critical condition in hospital, unaware of her daughter's deaths.
Thousands of opposition supporters gathered outside the Georgian parliament in Tbilisi on Sunday amid growing criticism of the government for its pro-Russian authoritarian ways. The protest was called by the main opposition group, the United National Movement, founded by imprisoned former president Mikhail Saakashvili. The demonstrators are demanding the release of political prisoners and the implementation of reforms sought by the EU to grant Tbilisi candidate status. The government of the ruling Georgian Dream Party has been accused of imprisoning opponents, silencing independent media and collaborating secretly with the Kremlin.
On 9th of April, Georgia commemorates Tbilisi massacre of 1989, when Soviet army brutally crushed peaceful demonstration in the center of Tbilisi demanding independence. 21 people were killed on that day, most of them women, and hundreds of others were injured. But it's not only the day of the tragedy for the country. 2 years later, on the very day, Georgian Supreme Council declared restoration of country's independence. Every year, throughout the day, people gather in front of the parliament building, bringing flowers and paying respect to those who gave up their lives fighting for independence. At the same time, Georgian opposition party United National Movement called for a rally that was not joined by part of other opposition parties. Besides politicians, there are many ordinary citizens here who came here once again to protest Russia's ongoing occupation of the country and to show support for Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations. David Kekenadze from Tbilisi, Georgia, for Euronews.
Some barely sleep, others fear spending time indoors, and many more have developed a profound fear of the mountains that had been their source of well-being. Turkish earthquake survivors clinging to the foot of soaring cliffs of ancient Antakya are quietly suffering the lingering toll of a disaster that killed more than 50,000 people 2 months ago.
Zaten yatmıyorum ben saat 2-3'te öyle bir şey yatıyorum yani. Ama saat 5'te geri kalkıyorum. 3'te yatıyorum saat 5-6'yı geçmez yani kesinlikle. Uyanıyoruz geri. İşte benim oğlum var Antalya'daki, o her zaman kendi kendine bağırıyor. Geldi bir hafta yanımda kaldılar. Gece kaç defa 4-5 defa bağırıyor. Depremden dolayı korkuyor yani.
Volunteer psychiatrist Aral Turk tries to heal the anguished by driving around the disaster zone with a box full of pills in his car and a notepad for recording emotions.
En sık gördüğümüz 3 ruhsal hastalık bu süreçte akut stres reaksiyonları, bunun yanında kayıplara bağlı yas reaksiyonları ve geçmiş psikiyatrik hastalıkların, geçmişte hastanın halihazırda deprem öncesi olan hastalıkların geri alevlenmesi şeklinde.
On the day of the disaster, Sevgi's baby was only 15 days old. Now this young mother lives in fear.
Tabii ki yani deprem olduğu kadar hala da sallanıyoruz ara sıra. O yüzden korkularımız oluyor tabii ki. Yani kendimizi geçtik, bebeklerimiz var, o yüzden endişeliyiz.
3 million people have been displaced by the earthquakes in Turkey, according to the International Organization for Migration, and many of those present symptoms of PTSD.
I don't think anybody would say that the peace process 25 years on has delivered in its entirety, and it probably hasn't delivered as much as people would have hoped for or expected after 25 years.
I feel it's definitely delivered a bit, but there's definitely more work that could be done.
We have relatively peace, and I feel very privileged to experience that. You know, if I listen to my parents, they talk about very terrible times. Obviously, the political process is another question. Stormont's been down more than it's been up, so that's something I think is frustrating for people here.
Many nationalists and many unionists find there are things in the Good Friday Agreement they don't particularly like. But, viewed from other conflicts, other parts of the world, the achievement of substantial peace in what seemed like an intractable conflict, in what seemed like one of those conflicts that simply would not end, is a remarkable achievement.
There are over 100 peace walls here in Belfast, just like this one, which separate pro-Irish Catholics from pro-British Protestants. The very fact that these walls exist at all is living proof that when it comes to the full implementation of the 1998 peace agreement, there's still plenty of more work to be done. This is Ken Murray for Euronews in Belfast.